Welcome. In today's video, I'm going to dive into one of the toughest parts of any interview process, the behavioral interview. Now, we all know that interviews typically consist of multiple aspects. But in my opinion, there are two main aspects of any interview. One is the functional part, where the interviewers are testing you on your technical knowledge about the domain that you're working in. So, for example, if you're a finance professional, interviewers will test you on your finance knowledge. If you're a marketing professional, interviewers will test you on your marketing knowledge. If you're a software developer, interviewers will test you on your software development knowledge, so on and so forth. Now, in these functional interviews, there are one of two things will happen. Either you know the answer or you don't. So, how do you read a balance sheet? Either you know it or you don't. But the easier part is that the expectation of what the interviewer is looking for is pretty clear. There's typically one right answer. And if in case the interviewer is giving you a scenario, then you may have to think of other aspects. But understanding the expectations when it comes to functional or technical interviews is easier as compared to behavioral interviews. Now, behavioral interviews are very different. Here, the interviewers are asking about how you've handled previous situations in your experience, or how you exhibited leadership, how you handle or work during a conflict. Now, you could have a good story, but how do you know that your story matches the expectation of the hiring team, or what you're saying is actually resonating with them? So, in today's video, I'm going to go over how you can best prepare yourself for behavioral interviews. So, let's start with the first aspect. The first aspect is about understanding what the hiring team is looking for. In behavioral interviews, there are standard behavioral traits that most organizations look for. I'll name a few: teamwork, problem solving, leadership, communication skills, attention to detail, taking initiative, conflict resolution, and many more, but these are most of the common ones. Different organizations may call these behavioral traits slightly differently, but ultimately they're pretty much the same across the board. When you are answering a behavioral interview question, the question normally goes like, tell me about a time when you did X, or can you give me an example when you handled a situation that involved Y? In these instances, you have to go back into your previous work experience and talk about something that actually happened and how you acted and what was the end result. So in these situations, first and foremost, let's try and understand what are the common behavioral elements associated with these traits that you should be highlighting in your story while answering these behavioral questions. So let's look at teamwork, for example. Now, if I am describing an example from my past about teamwork, I would focus on two or three important aspects. One is effective collaboration. So, as a team player, I want to be known as someone who collaborates effectively across all members of the team. Second, I want to be someone who supports team goals. I don't want to be someone who's undermining the team by doing my own thing and not working together for the collective benefit of the team. I also don't want to be known as someone who avoids collaboration. So, whenever you're giving examples about teamwork, ensure that the story is aligning with the expected behavior and you're not deviating from the expected behavior and going off on a tangent. I'll give you a couple more examples. So, problem solving. if you get asked a question about problem solving. Now, I want to describe that I solve problems effectively by analyzing problems critically. I want to first understand the problem before jumping into a solution. And then once I develop a solution, I develop a plan to actually get the solution implemented. I don't want to be someone who's describing that I do not take problems seriously, or I don't want to sound as if I jump to conclusions straight away without understanding the problem. Similarly, I don't want to be someone who has no implementation plan for solving the problem. And third, and this is an important aspect because leadership is a commonly assessed trait in behavioral interviews. So, as a good leader, I want to be someone who inspires and motivates people. I want to be someone who takes responsibility for his or her own actions. I want to be someone that guides others. Now, what are some behaviors I want to avoid if being asked about leadership? So, I don't want to be someone who fails to take responsibility. I don't want to be someone who lacks vision or who micromanages people. As soon as your story starts getting into these elements, the interviewer will form a negative opinion about you, and you are not likely to get the job. All right, so now we've understood what hiring teams are looking for when it comes to behavioral interviews. Now, how can we respond in such a way that our stories align with these behavioral traits that we just talked about? Let's get into that. For telling stories effectively during a behavioral interview, I recommend a framework called the STAR framework, or simply situation, task, action, and result. That's what STAR stands for. Now, I personally use the STAR framework a lot. As I interview people, I recommend them to use the STAR framework because it enables the interviewer to understand your story well. It provides a good structure and it gives the other party a chance to ask you good follow-up questions. So let's take an example. Now, let's say you've been asked a question that tell me about a time when you worked with your team to accomplish a goal. Now, as you're thinking of the story, you should also think of how to structure the story. So you begin by describing the situation, the task, what you were responsible for accomplishing, then describe your actions and behaviors. That's the critical part, the A. And then an equally critical part is the result. So your actions should lead to some sort of a result. If nothing was achieved in the end and you worked a lot, then that is not a good story to tell. So let's see how we can answer this question of working on a team to accomplish a goal. So the situation could be as simple as you were working on a cross-functional team where you had to launch a new product. That's the situation. Now the task, you have to be very clear on what you were responsible for and what you were hoping to accomplish. So here you can say something along the lines of you were responsible for coordinating between the marketing team and the product team to ensure deadlines were met. Now comes the action part, or the part where you'll describe your actions and tie them to the behavior that we are talking about. In this case is teamwork. So you can say that you set up weekly check-ins to bring the team together. You could say you facilitated discussions to resolve disagreements. Again, trying to bring the team together to a common vision. You could also say that you communicated effectively throughout the team to ensure that all dependencies were well understood. And any change in timelines, how they impacted other members of the team, were also communicated through your actions. So these will exhibit the traits that we talked about for teamwork. And finally, as a result, you were able to launch your product before the deadline, and the product met the quality standards that you were striving for. So this covers how you can deliver your story effectively. But we are not done yet. There's another critical component that's still left. Let's try to address that as well. This critical component is the interviewer asking you follow-up questions. So just because you've responded to the question initially using the star format, it doesn't mean you're done yet. So interviewers will dig into the details. They will try to understand why you took certain actions. They will try to understand details to see if you really know what was happening throughout the story. They will try and ask you chronological order of events to see if they can find any loopholes in your story, whether you're saying something that you did but it was actually done by someone else. So be prepared with all the details, with all explanations of why you took certain actions and how you executed them with details. So typical follow-up questions could be, why did you choose to handle the situation that way? Or who else were you working with when you were collaborating in a team? What were they responsible for versus what were you responsible for during this collaboration? And knowing good answers, knowing details, clearly differentiating what you did versus what others that you were collaborating with did will help you establish trust with the interviewer. So by following all these recommended practices, you would significantly increase your chances of cracking behavioral interviews and getting the job of your dreams. And there's one good news. I've created a detailed guide to help you prepare for the toughest behavioral interviews out there. Using my experience where I've interviewed over 100 candidates in a big tech setting, I'm offering you this guide at a very small price. Normally, organizations charge thousands of dollars for this type of detailed interview preparation. But I believe in giving value that you can apply directly to your career growth. This guide will include multiple examples of behavioral questions and how to respond, so you can hit the mark every time. Plus, you'll get clear explanations of all possible behavioral traits that hiring managers are looking for, along with examples of what good answers look like. You can find the link to the guide in the description and in the comments. Thank you for watching, and good luck with your interview preparation.